We are live. All right, so we can resume again. Councillor Baldry, agenda item 15, the waste and recycling update. This is your paper.
Thank you, Leader. I'm going to do a few brief words of introduction to this item, and then I'll say a great deal more after the question session when I get a chance to introduce the entire paper and to move to recommendations. Leader, I think we all agree that this council wants residents to receive a waste and recycling service that they can be proud of. We're not doing that at the moment. This is, of course, a large and very complex contract valued at around about £30 million over the contract term. It's probably the largest contract that this council has. At the moment, the service we are giving to the public is not one of which we can be proud. It is one of which I am personally ashamed, and the daily number of complaints I get make me feel, to use Mr. Molyneux's words, humiliated. We are using all our means we can under the contract to try and secure delivery of the service that residents ought to be getting and thought they were getting. We as a council have made the contractor aware that we hold the contractor entirely responsible for the disruption and the poor service. The contractor is under no illusions whatsoever that this council expects, and that what this council expects, and our patience has run very thin. We are pressurising the council, and later on, when we get into the basis of the debate, I should say a great deal more. That's my introduction.
Chairman, before you move on, can you please double check that we are on?
Mr. White did say that we were, and I think it runs about 30 seconds behind us.
If I'm free, the head of comms, this is Ross and Femra, both Facebook and YouTube are live.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hopwood, you have your doubts?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You want to prove me you can Facebook in the meeting? But
is it possible to pop next door and just make sure that we are?
Please.
Thank you very much. We'll just hang on until he comes back, just to make sure. Yes?
Yes, right.
It is live.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Right, Mr. Parker. Yes? Are we all right? Thank you very much. Okay. Members, do you have any questions to ask Councillor Baldry before we move the recommendations on this one? Executive members, please.
Apologies.
That's the whole way. You're taking part in this one, are you?
Sorry, I'll join you for a little while if I might leave.
Yes, of course. You're welcome to. Of course you can.
Thank you.
Right. Councillor Hopwood first.
So, thank you, Chairman. So I have a bit of spiel and some questions that go at the end of the bit of spiel. So and some questions are in with the spiel. So what would you like me to do?
I think you can do your thing and have your spiel and then ask your questions.
So all at once, yeah?
Please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've read through this report and find it not only a very uncomfortable read, but humiliating. As a member of Southampton District Council for 20 years, I have never read a report that affects not only the council, but more importantly, the residents we represent so much, who quite frankly deserve better from the service they are receiving at the moment from FCC. As a council, the contract was awarded in all good faith by both officers and members who incidentally are no longer part of this council. There are lots of facts and figures within the report, but residents are interested in one thing and one thing only. When will their bins and recycling be collected? I believe the collection of waste is above everything else we as a council do for our residents, and we are failing because FCC, the contractor, are failing. As an executive member, I am at the weekly meetings to hold FCC to account, but each week we are told the same things. COVID and HGV drivers are to blame. We have asked for a recovery plan since the last one failed in July and haven't received one. When is enough enough? And when can we as a council look elsewhere for waste collection services to be delivered? Having said that, I'm now going to contradict myself, because where do we look? Within the papers are the facts and figures about the national shortage of HGV drivers, which is having a serious effect on supplies across all sectors, from the local Wetherspoons pub to the Tesco store. This week, North Somerset Council have announced the suspension of waste collections and have lost 5 members of staff over the past fortnight. So really, it is pointless looking elsewhere, because even if we took the service back in-house, we would be faced with the same problems. No HGV drivers to drive the lorries. We are stuck between the devil and a hard rock, but I am sure that many members feel like myself when I say we have had enough. On a daily basis, whether through Facebook or email, I am contacted by residents wanting to know what is happening and when their waste will be collected, yet I don't have an answer. When South Hams puts out a good news story on social media, it is lost to queries around waste. I'd now like to ask some questions from within the report. So, 2.6.2. Is it safe to say that the round review done by FCC, although they had previously operated the existing round successfully, has been a contributing factor to their failure to collect? Do you want me to go through all the questions, or do you
Well, I'll answer that one straight away, Leader. Yes, it has.
Thank you. 2.6.3 says the plan saw FCC increase the number of resources to deliver the service. I'm presuming this is staffing resources. If that is the case, why are so many of their staff just not turning up for work on a daily basis? Could this be due to the poor lack of management on the ground?
That would be speculation, Leader. My suspicion is that it could be a supervisory problem, it can be a management problem, but it will be a very difficult thing to prove.
3.7.
Sorry.
FCC have indicated that there may be other factors affecting recruitment, such as reputation. Can someone expand on this at all?
I can't expand on that. Reputation of what?
I can't do the two at the same time, so I'm not that good. 3.7.
I'm reading 3.7. It doesn't say about reputation as far as I can see.
I think it's the bit where they're currently able to source agency drivers or get staff in general.
I'll expand on that, Leader. All employers and all people at the moment employing drivers are finding it very hard to recruit. In many cases, a golden hello is being given to people. I have some sympathy with FCC, because if they were to pay the sort of rates that people like supermarkets and others are paying at the moment, rates of pay, it would not be something that any local authority in the country could afford to pay. Agency staff now can select where they go to work. When I come to introducing the report, Leader, I will be asking you to distinguish between the problems with the waste collection relating to the driver shortage, which is a national problem, but with also the problems, on the other hand, are within the control of FCC, and I think they should be treated as separate matters.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. Councillor Hopwood, have you finished, or have you got
No,
questions?
some more.
Okay.
Thank you. 5.3, which is just, sorry, I'm not explaining what it's about because you don't have the papers. The council has formally written to FCC to sort out concerns that the council has with FCC. And I'd like to ask, when was this letter written, and can we have sight of it, please?
I will look across to Mr. Bates, because the letter I thought was circulated to all executive members. It may not.
Through you, Chairman, I can check on the dates. It was within the last few weeks, and I believe it was circulated as well, but we can absolutely circulate that letter to executive members.
Thank you. 6.1, can I ask who is paying for our staff to help FCC at the moment, please?
Well, the answer is we are keeping a record. We have got some of our best officers doing the work that FCC should be doing in supervising and managing the operation, and that will be included in the bill to FCC.
Thank you, Chairman, I finished.
Thank you. Right, I think we have some member questions as well. I'm going to start at the bottom with Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I want to say congratulations to the team and to Keith for actually fighting their corner on all this for a long time with no real results, but it's got to be done. I got a couple of questions. One is, why weren't residents informed of the green waste in Pode, and to give them time to get their bins emptied for at least 1 week? And is there a chance that if they're not being resumed, which I presume they're not in the near future, I don't know, but is there a time for resumption of the green waste collection? And if not, can parishes dip into the fund, that's the penalty fund, to actually help them pay for skips to try to get rid of this fermented waste that's sitting in the brown bins? Because I've been taking it and it really is gone over the top. Thank you.
It was the decision to suspend the green garden waste was taken as an operational decision by officers in consultation and at the request of FCC, but in consultation with the executive. The timescale did not allow us, regrettably, to notify residents in advance, and the reason we were doing it was because we hadn't got enough drivers at that time to cover other services, and if we had done the round of everyone emptying their bins, and if we had also allowed enough time to get a letter to every resident to say it was going to be suspended so they didn't put anything more in there, the operational decision was there was not sufficient time to get a letter written and delivered to everyone. I personally would have liked a letter to everyone at the time, but I was convinced that there wasn't time to liaise with Well and get that letter out. On the second point of the use of money by parishes, I'm looking elsewhere for officers to answer, because I don't quite think, no, I can't answer it. Leave it to someone else to answer, please.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. So in terms of the first part around getting skips across the district, we often find with skips that they attract other waste streams, so they become areas to flight it. So if we were to collect the green waste, they would be heavily contaminated, which would incur additional costs. And the other point is it would exacerbate the issue around drivers, because we would need the same HGV drivers to collect the skips across the district, which would have further pressures onto the contract currently. In terms of the deduction part, I think I may have to add that one to Lisa or another officer. But operationally, that's why that's not feasible currently, because of the challenges that we face.
I'm sorry, Chairman, you probably got the wrong end of the stick, but I was suggesting that the parishes employ their own team to pick it up in a skip, not Southampton or FCC, and they would police what went in there, because they would have to collect the bins and actually physically put it in for the residents, because residents, disabled residents and people that can't deal with the bins would need help. And a couple of the parishes that I visit, they suggested they could actually help fill the bin and police what went in there, which would be purely 100% green waste.
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah. I don't see that technically there will be a problem with that, Councillor. The only issue I could see would be the disposal then of that green waste, where it goes to, because if it's clean green waste, there are disposal points, and we have to talk to our disposal authority, Devon County Council, to ensure that that will work.
Okay. Councillor Hopwood, I've got an answer for you on the letter. It was sent out on the 16th of August.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Taylor, if you look at the incomplete collections graph on page 121 of the agenda, you will see why letters were not sent out. It was it was an as and when thing. We found ourselves in such an impossible position with the green waste collections that they just had to be suspended. That's why we couldn't give notice of it.
Yeah, I understood it was there to help FCC with the other collections, and it seems you've got worse since, that's what it's saying.
Well, it was a question of drivers. There weren't any drivers to do the green waste collections, therefore the green waste was suspended. Since then, the driver situation has got even worse because when we suspended the green waste collections, there were 2 spare drivers, as I recall, to mop up on the bin collections that hadn't happened. But now we're in a situation where there are even fewer drivers because some of them are agency drivers and they've gone elsewhere. And so we're not able, even now, to have the catch-up rounds because we haven't got enough drivers to do them. So the situation is getting worse, and I dare say the situation will get even worse before it gets better as far as the drivers are concerned. But I think it is important to separate out the driver problem from some of the other problems. Now, has anybody else got any more questions before we move the recommendations? Yes, Councillor Palmer.
Yes, a couple of general ones. A lot of the people who complain to me say they want a rebate on their council tax. That seems to be the general demand across the district. I suspect the answer is that that's not going to be possible. If that is the answer, can a clear explanation of why be sent to members and perhaps at some stage communicated to the public? And secondly, what can we do to improve communications with the public? Because we had a situation in my ward where the recycling sacks weren't collected 2 weeks ago, and I think this is quite common experience. They should have been collected on the Saturday because of the bank holiday. On the Monday morning, I contacted the council and was advised that, sorry, it won't be possible to collect them. Please take your sacks back in. I took my sacks back in. Large numbers of people in the area didn't. It was posted officially by South Hams on Facebook that the advice was to take them back in. But on the Wednesday, 2 days later, a lorry was sent to pick up. And it was very good that it was, because it helped clear the eyesore of huge piles of sacks around the village centre. But it meant that people were doing the hokey cokey in pulling sacks out, putting them back in. And were very angry that those who'd followed the council advice didn't have their waste collected, where those who didn't did.
Yeah, well, that is frustrating, but probably better to clear the area up and they can put them out the next time.
Well, I
I'm
agree.
going to ask Mrs. Buckle to answer your question about why we're not refunding council tax.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, unfortunately, we aren't able to offer a council tax discount to residents. There is nothing in the council tax legislation that would allow us to offer a refund or a discount. So we do not have the legal powers to do that. And the reason for that is that council tax is a form of general taxation and it isn't a service charge, so it isn't a charge for services provided. And so unfortunately, that is the reason that we are not able to offer a council tax discount.
Thank you. Could we have a brief, I have seen something similar, could we have a brief letter to members explaining that and perhaps a statement on that?
Either an email or something in the
Yes.
members' bulletin, I think would be
Yes.
more done.
Thank you.
Mr. White, make a note of that, I'm sure I'll pass it on. Thank you. Right, any more questions?
Can I just answer that question?
Yes, of course.
Mrs. Buckle has given the answer. On the operational side, I'm sure it is very difficult to communicate with people. Later on today, I have a meeting where I'm going to propose a communication package, and I'm going to be asking for a letter to be sent to all residents through Royal Mail, and cost of which to be borne by FCC as well. As a layperson, on the question of refunding or giving a rebate on council tax, members will like to know that the actual cost of your waste service for residents in council tax is between £1 and £1.50 a week. It is not a large sum which is actually spent on that. And as a personal point of view, when the public asks me for a refund or rebate or a discount, where do they think the money is going to come from? The only money that South Hams has got is money which we have got from collecting council tax and from other grants. If we were to give out large sums of money in a refund or a rebate, it would have to come, because we are not allowed to increase council tax by the government over and above what we do now, it would have to come from cuts in other services.
Yes, I thoroughly agree with you. Now, have I got Councillor Smerdens down there wanting to ask a question?
First of all, I'd like to echo what Councillor Taylor's saying with regard to looking at alternative measures for collecting green waste. There are alternative measures available, and I'd be very happy to sit down with officers and discuss those, because I think that particularly in parishes, maybe difficult in larger towns, but particularly parishes, they are quite capable of policing what went into some sort of receptacle, etc. So I would be happy to have those discussions. I'm quite happy to do that. I did ask, when we were discussing the budget, there was an item in there, a question which I was going to ask, so I'll continue that one if I can. There was going to be 70,000 income from higher quality recyclate due to it being better sorted. Now, only about, as I understand it, only 60% of the recyclate is being properly sorted as per the Devon Line service. So I've got a question from Mr. Buckle, but I've also got other ones asked. So the question for Mr. Buckle is, do you think that 70,000 is still a viable figure? Are we likely to make that?
Through you, Chairman, yes, in the, we did see when we closed down our accounts for 2021 that our recycling income was up by 70,000. And so in this year's budget monitoring report and the report we considered, the income target for recycling is 451,000. We are predicting we will receive 521. So we do think we will receive that extra 70,000. We saw that we did last year, and we're on track again to hit that again this year.
Okay, so is the recyclate which is going to the Plymouth Chelmsford Meadow site, does that, once that has been processed, does that meet the correct standards for the
Mrs. Savage will answer that question, I know.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so there's two aspects to income from recycling. It's recycling credits and recycling income from sales. Recycling credits are paid by Devon County, our disposal authority. So they're linked directly to tonnage and they don't change, they just go up with inflation year on year. So if there's an increase in tonnage, which there has been, one reason is COVID and the change in habits. But the other reason is the new service is increasing the amount of recycling we're collecting. So in terms of credits, there is a guaranteed increase there. In terms of sales, COVID actually, there are a few positives from it. We have seen the markets have become more buoyant in recent months. So the market for paper and card, for example, obviously card, because that's a lot of shopping is done online now and delivered in boxes. So the fibre prices have gone up. So yes, we would expect that increase.
All right, fair enough. So going back to the report, under item 222, it says the contract's a joint contract with West Devon. The award of a shared service with West Devon resulted in additional savings for West Devon. Well, great. The question, which I need to ask is that I continue to be amazed and disappointed at the disparity in service provided by the same contractor to two adjacent councils, West Devon and South Hams, with similar widespread rural catchments. When this contract was promoted, the synergies with West Devon were highlighted as one of the great advantages. But as we sit here now, those synergies seem to be very, very one-sided. There appears to be only one council that's benefiting out of this contract, and it's not South Hams. Now, has any consideration been given on this track? Has any consideration been given to temporarily extending some West Devon roads into South Hams, particularly in the western parishes which border West Devon? You think of Sparkwell, Cornwood, places like that. And that would help to relieve the pressure of the South Hams operations. It's incredible that the service to both of these councils is provided by the same contractor, and the disparity in service that is provided to the two councils is breathtakingly diverse.
It's something I have consistently asked Leader why West Devon are getting a much better service than we are. The round changes in South Hams, of course, were designed by FCC and introduced, whereas the rounds in West Devon are well established. Part of the problems we got was the round changes and their introduction. But part of the answer, I am convinced, and it is a personal opinion, is the quality of the supervision in both West Devon and South Hams. West Devon seems to be able to deliver a much better service, and I think their supervisors are well established, and most of the staff are long established as well. But just to correct something that Councillor Smerdon said, West Devon are also suffering from shortage of drivers and are cancelling rounds the same as we are. But that is why I'm trying to distinguish between the driver problem and the operational side. I don't know if any of this officers want to add to that.
I suggest that we ask Mrs. Buckle, because there's an important point about how the contract works.
Yes, and the savings to both councils. Would you like to make that clear, Mrs. Smart?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And I think it's set out in section 2.2 of the report, but on the decision to outsource the service, South Hams made significant savings of just under 3.2 million over the 8-year contract, and that came from an annual saving of 286,000 prior to moving to the Devon Line service. At the point the council moved to the Devon Line service, those savings, the annual savings for South Hams, increased to 423,000 per annum, compared to the cost of an in-house service. So there were significant savings for South Hams. In addition to that, there were shared services savings from having supervisors and a management team in FCC that could be shared across the contract and across both councils. And that, the additional savings for South Hams was 107,000 per annum from having one management team covering both councils within FCC. So there were significant savings. I would also say that West Devon has had an outsourced service for waste for over 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smerdon, if that doesn't answer all your questions, can I suggest you take them up with Mrs. Buckle or Mrs. Savage outside the meeting?
I will happily do that. I would just comment that it's all very fine to be talking about the savings, etc., that we're making, but the public are not really concerned about us saving. They're concerned about the performance, and that's the
okay. Yeah. Look, we are technically still in questions rather than comments.
All right. Well,
okay.
that's all right. I'll be quiet.
Okay.
Thank you. Actually, my first question is, can somebody help me get actually in? I haven't been able to get in since we came back from coffee into the internet. But my points.
Are you trying to get through the website or through modern.com?
Just through Pulse. I can't even send an email to somebody to say, can you
what I was
help
going
me?
to say was, I've tried a few times to get in through the website to the agenda, and it doesn't let me in.
I was in earlier.
But if you get through modern.com, you can get in.
Well, I can't get into anything. Anyway, thank you. So, okay, thank you. So the points I wanted to just make really was around, as Councillor Smerdon said, around the green waste. I just don't understand why we're not using this opportunity to actually do something positive for the residents. And I have asked about this. We do have composting systems that we support in Ashbrington and South Brent, to my knowledge. There may be other places. And I think this is an opportunity to maybe start looking at more resilient waste services. It's crazy to be expecting green waste to be trailed around the countryside reliant on HGVs. So I'm just saying, why can we not just actually look at that as something that our council could do and work with us as members? I'd be more than happy. I spent hours on the phone telling people how to compost their waste. And there's a real willingness. I mean, a man of 86 said, I just can't get it out of my brown bin. I said, well, leave it there. And anyway, we had a conversation about, actually doing composting. It's not rocket science, and people are quite willing to do it with just a bit of help. And community composting is brilliant. It really is. It just needs somebody, one of our services to go on and chop it up. And I noticed on one of the capital investment reports, it referred to £10,000 a year being spent on composting. So, it's quite good money. And the other point I would just make is in terms of those changes of rounds, which I think is what really kick-started a lot of these problems, particularly that disconnect between us understanding
Yes.
where the
Yeah.
guys were, etc., at any time, and being able to pick up a quick miss and just sort it out. That was sold to us on the basis they were going to be saving, I think it was 13,000 kilometres a year. Now, I would sort of challenge that and say, well, I reckon they probably haven't made any savings, in fact, the opposite in terms of distances, because of the number of times they're going back. And especially, I mean, if that 13,000 kilometre savings was all the little routes that they then subsequently missed, then, you know, we should have checked it and not allowed it to happen. And so I ask, I mean, has there been an estimation of what the round looks like now? Is there genuinely a call for that change of route to be justified, or could we not go back to our old routes, which, you know, I don't think the roads have changed that much in the last 2 years.
Councillor Hodgson, I think there's a lot of truth in what you say, but I'm going to ask Mrs Savage to comment.
Thank you, Chair. So, yes, it's one of the things that we have an external person looking at. So we've got an external expert looking at the routes now. See whether
Answering the question.
Hang on.
Sorry, I'm listening, sorry.
William?
Yeah, so we have an industry expert looking at the routes now to see how efficient or inefficient they are. I totally agree with you. We don't believe at the moment they are efficient. In terms of composting and community composting that you mentioned, there is no reason why we can't signpost residents towards community compost sites. However, those sites do have an exemption on them, which means they can only collect up to a certain amount per year. So that's just a word of caution on that one. Home composting, I think that's an excellent idea. We've always promoted home composting, and we're in a scheme where members of the public can get on it through our website, going through the Devon County website, can get discounted compost things. Does that answer your question?
No, there was a couple more questions on the top of that. Just to start with your final point about the compost bins, which come down from Yorkshire at a cost of £10 postage each. There have been requests for them to be made available through Fullerton, people come and collect. I know that that's COVID risky, whatever. But what I was making was extending our community composting offer. So we don't just support Ashford and South Bretton and the others, but we actually help people to set up community composting in other areas. Where we're making these savings, we could possibly find that we'd end up by supporting community composting, evolving in new places and setting them up and advising. That, you know, even just giving out advice as to how to do it, and we've got local experts in Scotland and everywhere, that could actually be a really good investment, and it might just take one more bin of everybody's house in the streets. That would be incredibly beneficial.
No, I agree with that. It's an incredibly good idea. So the way that we could actually move that one forward is to discuss it with Devon County Council, because Devon County Council keep a validated list of community composters, because obviously they pay credits on those composts, so they have to vet each compost group. I know they definitely used to have large guidance packs on how to set up your own community compost group, so if you can get some more information from Devon County Council for you on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Savage. Right, if there are no more questions, well, there are questions.
I'll be
Councillor
as
Tom.
brief as I can. We've already talked about improving communications to residents. Is there an opportunity to improve the website so that residents who have regular complaints about non-collections or repeat collections or extended non-collections can actually go in and register? Because I think the frustration is there that, you know, they're only able 2 days after to register a non-pickup, and there are a lot of people out there, and I think all councillors are receiving those, you know, complaints and communications, and I think residents would like the opportunity to actually register those directly on our website, to be, you know, so they feel that they're putting their frustrations there. And I think the amount of times I get residents say to me, I'm really sorry to contact you, but I can't do anything through your website. And I think that would be valuable. And I think it would also be valuable for, you know, officers and FCC to actually see it direct rather than, you know, it keep coming through through district councillors.
Yeah, sorry, please, sorry, Sarah, please do, yes.
It's a very good question, Councillor Long. What I can do, I can take that away from today's meeting, because that part of our website is hosted by Milestone, who FCC have contracted out. So that's why when a customer reports a miss, it goes directly to FCC with UCAP. That's why that was set up. So that's the most efficient way. So in terms of of that, I can absolutely take that away and see if that's possible to do as well.
Please, I think that would be a big improvement for residents. Another question that I've got is around the commingled service, and I really do dislike that term. Residents doubt that the commingled service is fully recycled, and they are saying that they have heard that large amounts of that commingled waste is actually either landfilled or goes to incineration. And I think that, can you answer that?
Well, I can jump in on that. No South Hams waste goes to the landfill.
But whether it's
It goes to the incinerator, the residue goes to the incinerator, where it is turned into electricity to be used in the dockyard.
But I think the thing is, it's whether recycled material is actually going for incineration.
Right, and sorry, I will leave those who know what we're talking about to answer, but just briefly to say, residents have heard, we can't run this council on rumour.
No, but they'd like an answer to that.
Well, the answer is, Mrs. Savage is going to give it, that it is divided out again and put into the separate streams and moved on where it goes to the MRF and it is on the belt. The problem at the moment we got, unless you correct me, is that it used to be going to Chelsea Meadow, but because of the fire at Chelsea Meadow, it has been taken up the motorway to Bristol Avonmouth.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the waste at the moment, and I haven't caught up with that one, it may be going back into the MRF in Plymouth now, but it's taken to a materials reclamation facility where it's totally sorted. Those materials then would not be hauled all the way up the motorway if they're then disposed of, and we would be charged for the disposal. What happens instead is we get all the weighbridge ticket, every single one, every ounce of our waste, we know exactly where it goes to. We have to report that on a 3-monthly basis to DEFRA. So we know exactly where our waste is going, and I can assure you that none of that waste is being incinerated or landfilled, unless there is contamination in it, which will be taken away to one side.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Long, I hope you'll relay that to people.
That's why I wanted to ask it.
Yeah.
As it's being live streamed, I hope residents will.
Well, I hope so, because certainly at Parish Council last night, there seemed to be people who certainly knew better than I did about where things were going. I did try to tell them, but they didn't want to listen.
But the other question is just, obviously, larger, this is not rumour, residents are now not recycling and are placing recycled material into their black bins because they've lost faith in the recycling system. How are we coping with an increase in, and I suspect there is an increase in the volume of waste in the grey black bin service?
Thank you. We are coping at the moment with any waste that's going into the black bin. It's very difficult because of COVID to measure whether it is actually going up or not, because we can't get those, as we're getting individual weighbridge tickets, as I've just explained, it takes a while for them to get to us. So to spot the trends we're usually a month and a half behind, usually. We haven't been told of any particular problems in the black bins by SCC, and I personally haven't heard of any problems with residents saying, well, I'm not going to do it then, it's not happening. But we will keep an eye on that one.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. And please encourage your residents to carry on recycling, because it may be going to the MRF, but I can assure you that the MRFs are really clever places and they separate out the waste really well. Okay, Councillor Baldry, I think you can propose your recommendation.
I will in a minute, but just to say on that, I would very much like to arrange a visit for members once it is back at Chelsea Meadow, so they can come and see for themselves and then convince their residents that it is properly separated into different recycling streams. Right, Leader, I'm going to repeat some of the things. I'm going to move my recommendations first and foremost. Have I got a seconder there?
Seconded.
Thank you.
Councillor Baldry, did you want to say something else?
I've got to say a lot.
You want to say a lot?
I've got a lot to say going through the paper.
Okay.
I've moved the recommendation. Just to repeat what I said at the beginning of the meeting, we want to give a decent waste and recycling service to our residents. We are very satisfied with the service we are getting from the contractors, and building on some of the things which have been said in the questions, I find it appalling that, for example, assisted collections are not being done and being missed out, and that's by definition those with an assisted collection are the ones most in need of having their recycling and waste taken away. And I also find it totally inexplicable when we get repeat failures where it is put right 1 week by the contractor and 2 or 3 weeks later the same thing occurs again, and I echo the problem. It is difficult to report that on the website. We want to give residents a decent service. We are holding the contractor to account as much as we can, and we want to explore all possible options for getting about an improvement in the service. The contractor is in absolutely no doubt of the dissatisfaction. It is my nature as somebody who has been involved in operational matters. My nature is to work in cooperation with people, and I am working very much in cooperation with the contractor to get it put right. But it's come to a point where we have to bring things to a head and get things put right for residents. The performance is appalling. We've already said earlier in the meeting, we need to distinguish between the problems with shortage of drivers and the local failures to deliver. The local failures to deliver occurred before the national shortage with gardeners. And just bringing out a couple of things in the report, working with West Devon has already been mentioned. The round changes commenced on nearly a year ago, on the 4th of October. I am convinced that the contractor in designing those got it wrong. He did not take sufficient account of the nature of South Hams and the narrow lanes and the problems. They also, I think, failed to create a sufficient space at the Ivy Ridge depot, which now needs to be revisited. On the national shortage of drivers, which is on top of the problems which already existed, we are not alone. Many, and if not most local authorities are suspending services, and that is all outlined in paragraph 3.3. And I heard yesterday that Bristol have now suspended their garden waste service as well. So it is a national problem. It is a shortage of drivers, and I could go on a bit about what the causes are, but that's not for this meeting, except to say that there is a motion at next week's full council in the name of Councillor Hopwood, which I am supporting, that we should contact the government about releasing and giving licences for people to come and work here in addition, rather than the fact that we have lost an awful lot of people, and it's outlined in the report, because of leaving the EU. We continue and we will continue to monitor FCC, the contractor. The biggest thing that comes to me is we are giving our residents an awful service. It is terrible for the reputation of this council, which I think has got to be put right sooner rather than later. And leader, as an aside, may I draw attention to paragraph 6 of the report about organisational changes, where you will read that Natalie Johnson and Jane Savage are leaving us. And this may be the last chance I've got to say in public a big thank you to Jane Savage, the way she has helped and supported me, and I wish you very well in your retirement, Jane. But I've worked with you in the Old Waste Working Group before this for many years, and I think your knowledge and expertise is great. Chairman, I've moved the recommendation. I shall leave you to open the debate.
Thank you. Before I do, Councillor Baldry, I would like to propose an additional recommendation to the report, please.
Right.
Which will be recommendation number 5.
Right.
I am recommending to Council to resolve that the waste and recycling collection service provided still falls below the standard required to meet the expectation of local residents. Council has given assurances that the service will return to a steady state by mid-July. In the Council's review, this is not the case. In the Council's view, this is not the case. We appreciate the efforts of officers and FCC to try and rectify the situation. However, if a solution cannot be found to deliver the super recycling service as specified, the that's the Devon Line service, it should be, I suppose, as specified at the full council meeting on the 6th of December 2018. By the end of 2021, the council will be forced to consider exercising any available contractual rights in order to ensure that, going forwards, arrangements are in place which are capable of delivering a waste and recycling collection service that is fit for the 21st century. So I'd like you to add that, please, to the recommendations, if you would.
I'll be told procedurally, I'm willing to either second your amendment or to accept it as the mover of the original recommendations. I will accept the amendment.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
It's not an amendment, it's an addition.
No, it's an addition rather than an amendment. Thank you. Right, so now, does anybody want to comment? Councillor Bastow.
We're into comments rather than
We're into
questions.
comments now.
I don't want to repeat statements been made by others, and I fully endorse what Councillor Baldry has said. But I am going to say a couple of things. I am deeply disappointed with the service currently being offered by FCC. And I'm deeply concerned for those who, like Councillor Baldry, who have assisted collections, because it must be extremely difficult for them. We, as mentioned by Councillor Hotwood, we've been attending weekly meetings to hold FCC to account, but the problems they are facing are similar to those in other councils around us, like we've all heard in the last couple of weeks, Torbay are really struggling, are in a similar position. We must therefore work with FCC to try and improve matters, and we must try and push them to make improvements to the service going forward. I have to agree with Councillor Hodgson that the mileage that they are clocking up must be far in excess of what they did previously, because at this end of the ward and to the south, if they fill up a lorry, they have to travel miles back to Ivy Bridge to come back and do it again. And I also, you're saying about composting, I looked in our brown bin this week and it's already composting in there.
And you've got a garden.
You haven't got a garden? No, but I've got a balcony on which I keep plants. We have in recent weeks seen some extremely unhelpful, politically vitriolic statements to the press from some of our members. Two of those most outspoken people were the chairman of Overview Scrutiny and the leader of the opposition. But where are they today when we're debating this important topic? Not to be seen anywhere. So, Chairman, I don't understand what their issues are. I do understand that we're all disappointed with FCC, but they could at least be here to debate the topic today. Going forward, I just hope that we can persuade FCC to make improvements which will help to alleviate the terrible situation that we're in at the moment.
I have to agree with you. I think one of the most frustrating things about all this is the repeatnesses and the failure to pick up assisted collections. And I would like to thank Sarah and Dale, who've been helping on this, because you have been absolutely terrific. And you must get just as frustrated as we do. And I really feel sorry every time I have to email you and tell you that it's going wrong again. But you're very good at sorting it out. The problem is that it only seems to last for a couple of collections and then lose that again, don't they? But that's not your fault. Councillor Hopwood, did you want to say something?
I did, Chairman, please. I've been looking at the comments on the Facebook live debate to see what residents are saying, and one gent has come up with a good suggestion, and he says you need to communicate publicly when collections are taking place, and I understand that. So on a morning. When you get told by FCC maybe what rounds are being cancelled that day because no one's turned up, maybe it could go out the rounds that are actually being collected that day. so that residents know that that their round is going to be collected that day, because then they would make sure their waste is out. Although I understand that not everybody is on Facebook, but word does get out. And I think one of the frustrations that residents do have is this ongoing, like you said, miscollection. And I just think that's what somehow we need to clear up. There's one lady on there saying she can't get up the street because her pram can't go past the rubbish. Well, we all know that's not good enough, and I just don't know how we as an organisation get FCC to acknowledge these repeat failures, because it's the repeat failures that are making the situation, if it could be worse than it already is. So even if they just acknowledged and did something about the repeat failures, it would help in some small way to help our residents. So I'm sure you are really concentrating on that, but we need to be looking, residents have some good ideas, and they just need to be looked at.
Yes.
So I think it's a really important point, Councillor Hopwood, and one of our deep frustrations as a council is that we are very often unaware of precisely what our contractor is doing at any given moment, and the service delivery changes from day to day. So by all means, we can make that information available. One of my concerns would be that then perhaps we end up the following day simply reporting that not all of that's happened. So one of the key challenges that we've been putting to FCC is their inability to be able to communicate effectively in advance what they are going to do, and then to actually do what they say they're going to do. And it's this gap which means that we're constantly trying to catch up. So I absolutely understand residents' frustration. I'm sure that Sarah will take on board the point. I'm sure that we can communicate what information we have as best as we can in real time. But it's that feedback loop, that information loop, which is simply not working effectively at the moment with our contractor. We've challenged them numerous times about it. You as the executive has challenged them. I know I've heard you have those challenges. And the point about the repeat misses, I think, is a fundamental one. It is a clear demonstration, in my view, of the inability of the contractor to perform the service well. If it was simply a matter of it being a shortage of HGV drivers, we would expect that rounds would be either almost entirely collected or not collected at all. It is the fact that there are repeat misses which demonstrates that they are unable to change and improve their service in response. And we will absolutely continue to pursue them on that issue. So, as Councillor Baldry has pointed out, we need to separate out the here and now issues, which may well be to do with driver shortages, from those which were fundamentally about the poor implementation of the round review, the failure to design and implement appropriate measures to undertake the service, and further challenges when the new Devon line service was implemented. I think the report is very clear when you look at the chronology about the issues, and it's equally clear in my mind about the responsibility for those issues as well. So, on behalf of the council, on behalf of the officers, I would like to apologise for the service, and we will absolutely do our utmost to make sure that we put it right through the mechanisms we have.
Thank you. And I think that does reflect the determination of this administration to get this put right. Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
I've been a district councillor at South Hampstead for 20 years. I've taken huge pride in this council over all of those years, and I care immensely about our district and how clean our district is, and how we as councillors take our responsibility for recycling, etc. paramount. Clean streets, collected bins, dog bins, etc., and actual waste collected from the properties is the #1 service that we should provide, and we should provide it excellently. In the past, we've done that, but the service that FCC are providing South Hampstead Council and its residents is completely unacceptable. during the summer months, we've all had dog bins that haven't been emptied for days, sometimes weeks, overfill waste bins. And when I go to places in Britain, towns in Britain, districts in Britain, I'm constantly watching and seeing how clean their streets are, how their dog bins are emptied, how etc. It's quite sad, isn't it, really? But it's one of those things that I look for to see how we are managing compared to other districts and councils. Could I just go back, and it's not really a question, but I do think the proposal that providing our residents or assisting our residents with composting bins is a really good one, which we should be taking up. And with climate change being one of our core issues, core priorities, it's something that we shouldn't just talk about, we should actually try and see how we can progress with that. Because I'm sure town councils, parish councils, if we could get them, and Councillor Hodgson says they come from Yorkshire, you know, I'm sure those parishes, if we could provide those parishes, town councils who wanted to roll this out, then I'm sure they would partake and help us with that. We have had our meetings with FCC managers for many months now. As Councillor Hopwood said, we requested a recovery plan in July. We still haven't really seen that recovery plan. We haven't seen it. Thanks to our officers who have been doing an excellent job. You've been really helping considerably. The one person we don't seem to have mentioned is our member localities team, and Dan, who, in my view, always comes back to me within probably a couple of hours maximum with hopefully a solution. How on earth they can keep on missing the same areas, the same streets, the same houses, the same assisted collections is completely beyond me. I just cannot understand it. And, you know, if you're one of those residents who have been having problems now for on and off nearly a year with the assisted, with the redesign of the collection routes, I just can't understand why on earth they can't get it right. It's just beyond me. That isn't a reason to keep on doing it. And, you know, we've all had them, week on week, the same emails come back to us, and like you think, or the phone call, and you think, oh no, not again. I just don't understand it. But I fully support this. I think we are on our way out. I hope we are, but, you know, thank all the officers.
Thanks very much. Look, I am quite keen now to get to the end of this report because time is marching on. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just a quick one really to say that, I mean, the exec worked really hard talking to FCC over several months, but I think it's getting close to the stage where the talking is not good enough and some action needs to be taken because we're all getting fed up with it. We get hammered at every council meeting and it is very difficult to keep trying to make excuses for FCC, to be honest.
We're all in the same boat, Councillor Taylor. We're all as frustrated as you are. I do assure you of that. Councillor Hopwood, did you want to come on?
I do, Chairman, please, because there are some really important things being said on Facebook, and to me, these people who are listening to this, residents that listen, are really interested in what this council is doing about waste. So I think that they just need acknowledging the few things they're saying, because we, I just want it made clear. The Chief Executive said something just now about that was misinterpreted, stating on Facebook Live that you don't have enough contact with your contractor. That absolutely is not what you said. We probably have hourly contact with our contractor. So I just want us as a council, because the amount of time I'm spending speaking to FCC as an exec member, the officer time is far above, so that needs clearing up. Also, live update, and also there are two or more members from this council, officers actually working within FCC at the moment. So we are we have officers working within FCC at the moment, and we also have our Deputy Chief Executive and I believe our Chief Executive working almost full-time and beyond to try and sort this mess out at the moment. So we absolutely are in contact with FCC all the time. And words, action now, please. I completely agree, but we are talking to get to the action. So I don't want our residents to think that we're only talking, we're actually having actions. And I could go on, but these people, somehow we need to put a statement out to the residents that are really looking at this meeting today, that we are doing, something is going to happen. We just need to get to that stage, and we also need to communicate with our residents to let them know the steps we are taking. And I think a really good, just normally worded, excellent note to go out to all our social media and to the press, just to show what we as a council are doing, because my God, are we trying, but are we getting anywhere? I believe behind the scenes, yes we are, but we have to get there.
I do think it's important that our officers are exercising any contractual rights they have within the contract to bring resolution to the problems we've got. I think it's the detail of that we're unable to disclose to residents, but it is that which is very important, and residents will just have to bear with us. The service is unacceptable, but the council is not sitting around doing nothing, and I think it's important that everybody realises that, and that we have got a number of staff working on this and working very hard to try and resolve the problems. Councillor Hodgson, is that a hand up? Oh. Yeah, okay.
It goes there, doesn't it? It's just comfortable, not in your face. If I was at the back, I would have my hand right up.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a couple of points, really, and obviously the main thing for me is enough is enough, because I think it's just outrageous what's going on, and this isn't a blame at the council, it's a blame at the fact that what the result is what's on the street, and it's like it's been said word to word, but what people's daily experience isn't just the people who don't get their waste collected, it's been said, the people that walk past it, it's the people who are kind of complaining about the state of the streets with all these bags and boxes and goodness knows what. I mean, I feel that there's actually a fundamental problem here, that we never really looked at what they were how the service was going to be delivered. I had no idea we'd end up with everybody having 6 different items outside their front. And not everybody has that space. Not everybody has the space to accommodate and store. Not everybody can cart those things through their house to put out the front. So I think there's a whole piece of work that needs to be done to actually rethink what we actually want to and how we want to deliver a better comprehensive recycling service, which I know in principle was very good. But on top of that, in terms of what's been said about being able to report in miscollections, and I've been saying this, I think it certainly was June, if not earlier, I did ask if we could have something on the website that could be looked at. And I'm interested, Sarah, that you're saying we can do it now, but this is 4 or 5 months later. And I think that's something that we need to ensure, because we need to make sure we capture the miscollections, because for everything that doesn't get reported, we're losing an opportunity of evidence of what's happening from the experience of our residents. And every single collection is somebody's misery, and I think it's really important we respect that bit by making sure that it can be captured, because I don't want us to see that we've actually, it didn't look too bad on the statistics, when the reality is, as councillors, we know what's happening in the street. And I just think it seems to me appalling that our recycling service that's going forward now is so dependent on HGVs. We need to make sure it's resilient. I mean, the composting is one element, but something about looking at how we're looking at some of the free zone work that's been talked about.
Could you bring your conclusion?
I will, but I mean,
there's a conclusion, please.
Yeah, I am, but I'm just trying to give it a bit more rounded approach.
Yeah, I think it's getting late.
So yeah, I just feel it's there's other ways of looking at this that could perhaps be a lot better, and I don't think we need to be hearing about how the cardboard is the problem when it could have been anticipated.
And that now, to round off the discussion, I'd like to bring in Mrs. Savage, And then I would like Councillor Baldry just to repeat the bullet points he made so that we're quite clear where we're going. Thank you, Mrs. Savage.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of communications, we held quite a few informal member meetings, full member meetings, where we did take in the containers. So we showed all the containers that were going to be used, etc. We produced member briefing packs. Members of the public had, they had an initial leaflet telling them what to expect, followed by the actual leaflet that told them everything on which containers to put everything into, the stickers for the containers, etc. We also carried out 5 months worth of property assessments because we knew that some of our properties may not be suitable, may not have pavement access outside the property, etc. So we carried out those. We had about, at one stage, we had 7 staff doing those over a 5-month period. We also, I think it's worth mentioning that the way that we're collecting waste now, or the way that we aspire to be collecting waste on the Devon Line service, is the preferred service of the whole of Wales and most of the South West. And the reason it's the preferred service is because it produces high quality recyclates. So most of the recycling gets recycled because it's a curbside sort, it gets on the curbside, which is excellent education anyway, direct education to members of the public, but also you get a high return from it. The other point to make is we're at the moment going through the waste strategy consultations, which we've just completed back in June, the second round of the waste strategy. This is the English waste strategy consultation. The Devon Line service does tick the boxes of what we're expecting the government to bring forward in the environment. So I think the last point was about members of the public. Members of the public can go onto our website and they can go through our Ask the Waste Team questions. So if members of the public want any more information, they can go through that route. There's also, I failed to mention it earlier on, but when we had the question about council tax, we do have FAQs on the website as well, and council tax is covered on those FAQs as well, while we can't refund it.
Thank you, Mrs. Savage. Councillor Baldry, would you just like...
Mr. Bates wishes to speak.
Do you want to come in? Sorry.
If I may be, so I think there was one last point which was about the collection of performance data. Just to reassure you, whilst we struggle to explain clearly to our residents what's happening on a day-to-day basis because we simply are not told by a contractor, we are absolutely collecting all of the default information assiduously, and that will form part of our ongoing conversation with the contractor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baldry, would you like to sum up?
I will sum up as best I can. I think the thing is to concentrate on the central issue, which is the bad service which we are giving to the public, and that we are working together with the contractor as far as possible to put it right. But I recommend that everybody looks at the additional recommendation, leader, which you have moved, and reads that carefully to understand we have come almost to the end of our patience and we are going to move forward as best we can. I'm sorry to have to also draw attention to, but so it doesn't get missed, the recommendation which is, with enormous regret, we are going to continue suspending the garden waste now until at least the next executive. But for now, leader, I've said enough. The service is not acceptable. We are going up with it, not to put much longer.
Councillor Baldry, thank you for that, and I'd like to thank you for everything you are doing with officers to try and put this right. You really are doing a sterling job, and I'm sorry that your efforts are being so poorly rewarded at the moment, but that's certainly not your fault.
Thank you.
Definitely not. Nor officers either. So, right. So, members of the executive, are we happy to endorse this paper with the extra recommendation?
That is unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Now, to finish off, we have a final report of a body, which is the Audit Committee. This is the last item on the agenda, and there are 2 recommendations, I think, in this, if I recall correctly, that are recommendations to us. So the first one is is on page 132. And it is recommended to the executive to procure an extra 0.5 full-time equivalent of internal audit from the audit partnership, Devon Audit Partnership, for this financial year to backfill for the loss of internal staff time that has been used to administer the business grants for the council. If approved, this would be funded from the new burdens funding received from the government for administering the business grants. This will ensure a robust internal audit environment by enabling the Internal Audit Service to fully complete its audit plan for 21-22. Now, this presumably, Mrs. Buckle, is what the burdens funding was for, isn't it?
And the new burden funding is actually the money that we were given for administering the business grants. This would be a shared resource with West Devon as well.
Right, okay.
In terms
Yes.
of plan. And we have already accounted for the possibility of the committee agree that funding. And the Devon Audit Partnership are looking to secure some personnel to fill that post up.
Right. So you're happy financially with that? I think this would be a good idea. So is everybody happy to agree that? Good.
Unanimous,
Thank you. I think that there is there's one more further down, isn't there? Which is a report on leisure services in October. And as far as I understand, that report is coming forward in October, Ms. Brooke.
Mr. Brooks said
Mr.
yes. Mr. Brooks said yes.
Sorry, that's all right, but the leisure service report is coming forward in October. Is it one that slipped into December?
That one would be better in December.
Right, okay, so we accept the recommendation of the audit committee, but the report will be coming in December, not October. So everybody happy with that? Right, thank you very much.
Thank you.